Okay, so in this video we are going to look at a UML class diagram that sort of takes this observer pattern and sets it up as a design pattern in Visual Paradigm. It's going to be slightly different in that this subject is going to be abstract, and it's going to be an abstract class. The observer is going to be an interface, and it's going to have a concrete observer that implements this interface, and similarly the subject is going to be an abstract class. It's going to be implemented by some concrete subject, but otherwise it's essentially the same idea. There's going to be we're going to stick to maybe a few concrete subject objects when we apply the design pattern, and then a few concrete observers, just to show you that there can be many of these and many of these. Typically we talk about one subject and many observers, but just want to show you that we can have many of each kind. Okay, so here's the structure that I've set up already. I just did it in advance. The subject is an abstract class with attach, detach, and notify. And the observer is an interface with the update method. And this notify is not essential. I know we talked about the observer as having the notify method, which we said, all right, sometimes we call it notify, sometimes we call it update. What we typically do is we attach observers to a concrete subject, and then we call the update method of the concrete observers. Okay, and once again, the picture you want to keep in mind, if it's at all possible, is this example of the subject being buttons, the observer being any class that implements the action listener interface. Okay, so I've made this into a design pattern. A couple of things that I did to make my life simpler was I made this pattern members creatable. That is, once you apply this design pattern, you can make it so that you can create more members. That's all this responsibility gives you. Similarly, the observer is also pattern members creatable. That is, when you create when you apply this design pattern to a specific instance, you can make it so that, well, this responsibility makes it so that the observer can have more members, data members or method members. The concrete observer and the concrete subject are both pattern clonable, which means you can have multiple instances of the concrete subject right when you're applying this design pattern to a specific situation. So let's take a look at that. All right, so I'm going to open up an empty project. It's basically empty, I think. Okay, well, it's empty. It's pretty much empty. I called it data viewer. I know you couldn't see what I did off to the side, but I just did file, open, and this empty project. And so what I'm going to do is right click and go to utilities and apply design pattern. And remember, we get this dialog box, which you want to be careful about, because I always make the mistake of clicking OK after I do one thing, and then it's just a big mess. Okay, so now once we get into this, that is, now what we're going to do is we take this observer design pattern and we're going to apply it to a specific situation. So for example, let's say we are going to look at this application where we're going to look at some data, and the subject, we're going to say is just a button. And let's say we have a specific button class that we've set up called, let's say, my button. And the concrete subjects, so the attach and detach and all that we don't have to worry about. And let's see the concrete subjects. We should be able to, since I made it pattern clonable, I can clone it. That is, I can add I don't know if that worked. Clone. Alright. Alright, I can't do that while this is selected. It's very picky sometimes. Now that I've got concrete subject selected, I can clone, I hope. Alright. And I'm just going to make one more. Alright, so the first subject I'm going to call something like fast forward. So let's say we're looking at some data and we have a button to fast forward through the data. I don't know if this is the best example, but let's say we have a fast forward button and also we have a fast reverse button to go backwards through some data. It could be a movie or something like that. Okay, I'm always tempted to hit the OK button. I have to resist that, because if you do, it's just all completely messed up. Like, you have to start from scratch. There must be a way to even if you click the OK button, go back and set this up, but I haven't looked for it. Alright, so the observer I'm going to call a special, maybe an interface that I would set up called the button listeners. Okay. No, I was going to click the OK button. I don't want to do that. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to create 3 kinds of button listeners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone. This time I'll use 2. Click on OK. I'll make this, for example, I'm just making stuff up. This is not even a real application. Let's say thread manager. So the idea is that you have 2 buttons, fast forward, fast reverse. When either of those buttons are called, maybe you might want to start up more threads or stop some threads. So one of the things that is going to have to change when buttons are clicked is, let's say, some kind of thread manager for multi-threading. And then maybe a network manager to manage data that you're getting across the network. All right. And then thirdly, something like a renderer to render the data on the screen somehow. Okay, so you're getting some data, you have buttons, forward button, back, reverse button. You have 3 things listening to those 2 buttons. You know, they can be all 3 listening to one of them and maybe just 2 of them listening to the second one, something like that. I think that's about all I wanted to do. Now I click on OK, and it creates this. Oops. Alright. There's the fast forward and the fast reverse buttons. And there's a network manager. It's going to be a listener for button events. And also a renderer is going to listen to the button events, and a thread manager. So here what we can do is whenever we click fast forward, maybe a couple of these button listeners are going to be notified, and maybe click on fast reverse, maybe all 3 of them need to be notified that something has happened. So this is a more general situation than what we looked at in the notes, where we had just one subject or observable and many observers. We can have multiple observables, and that's all we've done here. These are 2 observables, many observers. Okay, that's the basic idea. And I just want to show one more thing, which is that you can go to, alright, let me move this and show you how you can generate code. You go to Tools, Code Engineering, Java round trip. That is, you can create from this class diagram, you can create code, and also you can modify that code and then reverse engineer it or get a class diagram back into your Visual Paradigm workspace. So here's all you have to do: generate code. You say Java. I think this root is okay. I think, oh, there's a ton of options for default attribute types. A lot of these attributes we haven't specified what the types are. That's okay. And then there's a default type. There's ways that you can, I like this kind of braces. So you say interface, name of the interface, and then braces or class, name of the class, and then braces right there. Some people like the brace to be on the next line. So those are options. I don't really mess with this very much there's a lot of things that you can customize. Okay, so I just say cancel to keep the current options, and then I say okay. Oops. Oh, I got some problem. It's kind of hard to see, and I'll pull it up so that I hope you can see it. Nope. Alright, it's a little bit hard to see, and I can't move the window into the range that you can see, but it says the class data viewer button listener cannot be the superclass of data viewer renderer. So there's some kind of problem with this being superclass. We'll have to fix it up. So I'm going to not go into that, but if we had a nice simple set of classes, it's very easy to create Java code from it. Right now I can't, just because there's some problem between, I think, a bunch of my classes. Okay, I hope that at least gives you some idea of how to set up these classes, how to try to generate Java code. It's usually, when it works, it's pretty simple. You just say tools, generate Java code, and maybe change some options, but that's about it. Okay, I'll stop here.